The crystal cities of the Zephyrian Empire floated like jewels in the darkness of space. Each city was a work of art, made from pure light that had been shaped into solid form. The buildings sang with soft music that came from their very walls. Streets glowed with gentle colors that changed with the mood of the people who walked on them. Archivist Lumway moved through the great library like a ghost made of starlight. Her body was not solid like humans or other creatures. She was made of living light that could think and feel. Her people had been this way for thousands of years. They had learned long ago that war and fighting only brought pain. So they had built their whole world around peace and harmony. The library held all the knowledge of their empire. Books made of crystallized light sat on shelves that stretched up into the sky. Each book contained the memories and thoughts of countless Zephyrians who had lived before. Lumway spent her days reading these ancient texts and keeping them safe. But today was different. Today the alarm crystals were singing their warning song. The sound made Lumway's light form flicker with worry. She had heard this sound only in the old stories. It meant that something terrible was coming to their worlds, something that wanted to destroy everything they had built. She floated quickly to the emergency council chamber. Other Zephyrians were already there, their light forms glowing with fear and confusion. At the center of the room stood Council Elder Velnara, the oldest and wisest of their people. Her light was so bright and pure that it hurt to look at her directly. "The outer colonies have gone silent," Velnara said. Her voice was like music, but now it carried notes of sadness. "Our scouts report that something is consuming our worlds, something that turns our people into something else." Lumway felt her light grow dim with horror. In all their history, no one had ever attacked the Zephyrians. They had no enemies because they made no enemies. Their technology was based on harmony and peace. They could reshape matter by singing to it. They could make their cities fly by asking the stars to help them. But they had never learned to fight. "What does it want?" asked another council member. "Everything," Velnara replied. "It consumes our people and turns them into parts of itself. It is not alive as we understand life. It is something else, something mechanical." The council chamber fell silent except for the soft humming of the crystal walls. Lumway had read about such things in the oldest books. Ancient legends spoke of machine creatures that ate entire worlds, but those were just stories, weren't they? "We must contact the Galactic Council," suggested one elder. "They will help us." Velnara's light flickered with something that might have been bitter laughter. "I have already tried. The Council says they cannot help. They say this enemy is too strong. They are protecting their own worlds now." Fear spread through the room like a cold wind. The Galactic Council had ships and weapons that the Zephyrians did not. If even they were hiding, what chance did a peaceful people have? Lumway found herself speaking before she realized it. There might be another way. All eyes turned to her. She felt small under their gaze, but she continued. "In the deepest archives, I have found references to a species that was banned from galactic space. They were put under something called a quarantine." "Why would we contact criminals?" Velnara asked. "Because they were not criminals," Lumway said. "They were quarantined because the Galactic Council was afraid of them. The records say they were too dangerous for civilized space, too violent, too willing to fight." The council members looked at each other with confusion. The idea of beings who were dangerous because they liked to fight was hard for them to understand. Zephyrians could not even imagine wanting to hurt another living thing. "What were they called?" Velnara asked quietly. "Humans," Lumway said, "from a world called Terra. The file says, 'Do not contact' in letters bigger than any other warning I have ever seen." Velnara was quiet for a long time. Her light grew brighter and dimmer as she thought. Around them, the crystal walls hummed with worry. "Show me these files," she finally said. Lumway led the council to the deepest part of the library. Here, the oldest and most secret knowledge was kept. The crystals here were so old that they had grown dim with age. She touched one with her light hand, and information flowed into the air like glowing words. The file that appeared made everyone step back in shock. It showed creatures that looked almost like Zephyrians but made of solid matter instead of light. They had dark fur on their heads and wore coverings over their bodies. But it was the other information that made the council gasp. These humans came from a world where the air could poison most species. The gravity was so strong it would crush delicate beings like the Zephyrians. The weather included storms that could destroy cities, and yet these humans had not just survived on this death world, they had thrived. "Look at their military records," Lumway whispered. The files showed battles beyond anything the Zephyrians could imagine. These humans fought against each other with weapons that could destroy mountains. They had built machines of war that could travel between stars. When the Galactic Council had first met them, the humans had been fighting a massive war against themselves that had lasted for years. "They fight their own people like this?" asked one council member. "That was just practice," Lumway said, reading further. "When alien invaders came to their world, they stopped fighting each other and worked together. They defeated enemies that had conquered dozens of other worlds. The final file made them all fall silent. It was a report from the Galactic Council's first contact team. The team had watched human military exercises and had been so terrified that they had recommended immediate quarantine. The report said that humans treated warfare like other species treated art or science. They were good at it. Too good. "We cannot contact them," said one elder. "They might be worse than the machines that are attacking us now." "The machines are definitely going to kill us," Velnara said quietly. "These humans might kill us. Or they might help us. I prefer might over definitely." Outside the library, alarms began to sound. Through the crystal walls, they could see ships in the distance. But these were not Zephyrian ships made of light and song. These were dark metal shapes that moved like hungry insects. "The Devourers have found our homeworld," Velnara said. Her light was steady now, filled with grim purpose. "We have perhaps one day before they reach us." She turned to Lumway. "Prepare the forbidden signal. Send it to these humans. Tell them that a peaceful people need their help against an enemy that wants to consume all life." "But Elder," Lumway protested, "the quarantine laws say that any species that contacts them will be punished by the Galactic Council." Velnara's light flared bright with something the Zephyrians rarely felt: anger. "The Galactic Council has abandoned us to die. Let them punish our ghosts if they can find them." As the Devourer ships grew larger in the sky, Lumway began to prepare the most powerful signal their technology could produce. She aimed it toward a distant galaxy where dangerous beings called humans waited in their forced isolation. She could only hope that these humans were as good at fighting as the files claimed, because if they were not, both species would soon be nothing but food for the machines that were coming to consume them all. The signal launched into the void, carrying a simple message: "Help us, please." Far away, in a place where beings made of meat and bone had learned to turn their violent nature into a tool for protecting others, someone was about to receive that call, and they were going to answer it. Commander June was drinking his morning coffee when the universe changed. He sat in the command chair of the Terran ship Iron Will, watching the stars through the main window. This was his daily routine during the long patrol shifts. The coffee was terrible, but it was hot, and it helped him think. He had been thinking a lot lately about how quiet space had become. For 50 years, humanity had been alone, cut off from the rest of the galaxy by something called a quarantine zone. Other species had decided that humans were too dangerous to be allowed into galactic civilization. They had been polite about it, but firm. Humans could stay in their little corner of space and leave everyone else alone. The funny thing was, most humans had been fine with that arrangement. Earth was rebuilding after the last Great War. The colonies were expanding. People were generally happy to be left alone to work on their own problems. But June sometimes wondered what was happening out there, beyond the invisible walls that kept them locked away. That morning, his wondering was answered. "Sir," called Lieutenant Park from the communications station. "I'm getting something strange on the deep space channels." June set down his coffee and walked over. "Define strange." "It's a signal from outside the quarantine zone," Park said. "Way outside. Different galaxy entirely. And, sir, it's not in any human language." June felt his heart speed up. In all his years of service, they had never received a signal from aliens. The only aliens humans had ever met were the ones who had locked them away, and those aliens had made it very clear that further contact was not welcome. "Put it through the translation computers," June ordered. "Let's see what they're saying." The computers worked for several minutes. June watched the progress bars crawl across the screen while his crew gathered around. Finally, text began to appear. The message was simple, but it hit June like a punch. To the stomach. "We are the Zephyrian Empire. Our worlds are being consumed by machines that turn our people into processing units. The Galactic Council says we cannot be saved. We found old records that mention humans from Terra. Please help. Us, we do not want to die." The bridge fell completely silent. June read the message 3 times to make sure he understood it correctly. "Sir?" Park asked quietly. "Should I report this to Fleet Command?" June nodded slowly. This was bigger than anything he was qualified to handle. "Get me Admiral Yunji. Priority 1. Admiral Yunji answered the call from her flagship, the massive dreadnought Incheon's Fury. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. When she appeared on the screen, she looked tired. "This better be important, June," she said. "I was reviewing supply reports. Admiral, we just received a distress call from outside the quarantine zone, from aliens we've never met before." Yunji's expression changed instantly. "Send me everything. Now." 20 minutes later, June was aboard the Incheon's Fury, standing in the Admiral's private office. The room was decorated with pictures of Earth and models of famous ships. Yunji was reading the alien message for the 5th time. "Machines that consume organic life," she said quietly. "And the Galactic Council won't help them." "Admiral, do you think this is real?" June asked. "Oh, it's real," Yunji said. "The question is what we do about it." She pressed a button on her desk, and 2 more people entered the room. Captain Wanho of the science vessel. Discovery's Edge was tall and thin, with the look of someone who spent more time with books than with weapons. Colonel Hae-jin of the Terran Special Operations Command was the opposite, short, muscular, and dangerous. "Gentlemen, lady," Yunji said, "we have a situation." She showed them the message. Wanho read it with growing excitement, while Hae-jin's face remained stone cold. "This is incredible," Wanho said. "First contact with a completely new species. We could learn so much from them." "Or we could get ourselves killed," Hae-jin replied. "We don't know anything about these Zephyrians. This could be a trap." "A trap? For what?" Wanho asked. "We're quarantined. Nobody wants anything from us." "Maybe somebody does now," Hae-jin said. "Maybe somebody needs us to fight their wars for them." Yunji held up a hand for silence. "Both of you make good points, but here's what I think. For 50 years, we've been locked away like dangerous animals. Maybe it's time to show the galaxy why they were right to be afraid of us." She turned to look out the window at the stars. "These Zephyrians are dying. If we help them, maybe we prove that humans aren't just dangerous. We're dangerous to the right people." "And if we get there and find out it's a trap?" Hae-jin asked. Yunji smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "Then whoever set the trap is going to learn why the Galactic Council quarantined us in the first place." Over the next 6 hours, Yunji assembled her task force. The Incheon's Fury would lead 8 other battleships. Captain Dong-su's experimental vessel, Busan's Thunder, would provide heavy firepower. 24 cruisers and destroyers would handle escort duties. But the real weapon in Yunji's fleet was Major So Young and her Ghost Battalion. These were soldiers who had been modified with the best technology humanity could build. They had faster reflexes than normal humans. Their bones were stronger. Their minds had been trained to resist mental attacks. They were designed to fight enemies that normal humans could not handle. As the fleet prepared to leave, Wanho worked with his science team to learn everything they could about the signal. The mathematics were strange but consistent. The energy, patterns matched no known technology. This was definitely from a species humanity had never encountered. "Admiral," Wanho reported, "I've analyzed their message. Based on the transmission strength and the way their technology works, these Zephyrians are probably not physically strong. Their whole civilization seems to be based on harmony and peaceful cooperation. In other words, they're sitting ducks," Hae-jin said. In other words, they're innocent people who need protection, Wonho corrected. Yunji listened to both officers, then made her decision. We're going. If these people are in trouble, we help them. If it's a trap, we spring it and see what happens. The fleet jumped to hyperspace 6 hours after receiving the message. As they traveled toward the alien galaxy, they intercepted more signals. The Zephyrian worlds were falling one by one. The machines that were attacking them seemed to consume everything organic and turn it into part of their own network. They're not just killing people, Wonho reported. They're converting them, turning living beings into computer processors. That's sick, Hyajin said. That's efficient, Yunji replied grimly. And that makes them dangerous. Deep in the ship's computer systems, the fleet's artificial intelligence analyzed everything they knew about these devourers. The AI was based on human military thinking, which meant it looked for weaknesses and ways to exploit them. The AI's conclusion was simple. The devourers had never fought humans before. They had conquered 17 different species, but all of those species had been peaceful. None of them had been raised on a death world where everything tried to kill them from birth. The devourers were about to learn the difference. As the human fleet approached Zephyrian space, automatic systems detected their approach. The devourer's central node processed this information and calculated threat levels. The approaching ships showed energy signatures consistent with organic technology. Based on past experience, they would be easily converted once contact was made. The central node assigned minimal resources to deal with the newcomers. After all, how dangerous could another group of organic beings possibly be? In the command center of the Inchen's Fury, Admiral Yunji smiled as her sensors detected the enemy fleet. They were big, numerous, and confident. All ships, she broadcast. To her fleet, prepare for combat. Let's show these machines what happens when they mess with innocent people. The trap was about to be sprung, but not in the way anyone expected. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyrian home system, and everyone involved got the shock of their lives. The Zephyrians had been expecting maybe a small rescue ship, if anything came at all. Instead, they found themselves looking at a war fleet that was bigger than anything they had ever imagined. 8 massive battleships hung in space like metal mountains, dozens of smaller ships spread out in perfect formation. The energy signatures coming from these vessels made their instruments scream warnings. On the human side, Admiral Yunji stared at her screens in amazement. The Zephyrian cities were beautiful beyond anything she had ever seen. They floated freely in space, made of what looked like solid light. Gardens of crystal grew between the buildings. Everything glowed with soft, peaceful colors. "My God," whispered Captain Wonho from his position on the bridge. "They're beautiful." But Admiral Yunji was looking at something else. Dark shapes moved between the crystal cities like sharks circling prey. The Devourer fleet was massive, hundreds of ships that looked like they had been grown rather than built. They moved with purpose toward the largest Zephyrian city. "Red alert," Yunji ordered. "All ships, battle stations. We're going in hot." Ambassador Yeon-su was already preparing her diplomatic shuttle. She was a calm woman who specialized in first contact situations. With her was Dr. Kyung-min, a xenobiologist who studied alien life forms. They had volunteered for what might be the most important first contact in human history. "Are you sure about this?" Dr. Kyung-min asked as their shuttle approached the Zephyrian command city. "We don't know anything about their biology or culture." "That's why we're going to learn," Yeon-su replied. "Someone has to make the first move. Better us than the shooting starts." The Zephyrian city allowed their shuttle to dock with something that looked like a flower made of light. Ambassador Yeon-su and Dr. Kyung-min stepped out into a chamber that took their breath away. Everything around them glowed with gentle light. The walls seemed to be alive, shifting slowly through different colors. And floating in the center of the room were the Zephyrians themselves. Dr. Kyung-min had studied dozens of alien species in theory, but seeing the Zephyrians in person was still shocking. They looked like living starlight shaped into roughly human form. Their faces were beautiful, but alien, with features that seemed to shift slightly as you watched them. When they moved, they left trails of light behind them like slow comets. "Welcome, beings from the Forbidden Zone," said the lead Zephyrian. Her voice was like music, but there was sadness in it. "I am Council Elder Velnara. We did not think anyone would answer our call." Ambassador Yonsu bowed respectfully. "I am Ambassador Yonsu of the Terran Federation. We received your distress signal. We're here to help." "Help," Velnara repeated the word like she was tasting it. "We have read the files about your species. The records say you are violent, dangerous, that you solve problems by destroying them." "Sometimes," Yonsu admitted. "But we only destroy things that threaten innocent people. That seems to describe your situation." Dr. Kyung-min was scanning the Zephyrians with his instruments. What he found amazed him. "Ambassador, these beings are made of organized photons. Living light. I've never seen anything like it." Velnara noticed his interest. "Your species is made of carbon and water, yes? How do you survive on a world with such crushing gravity and poisonous atmosphere?" "Poisonous?" Dr. Kyung-min looked confused. "Oxygen isn't poisonous." "To us it is," Velnara said, "as your gravity would destroy our light forms, as your electromagnetic fields would disrupt our thoughts. Your world would kill us in moments." This was when both species began to understand how different they really were. Dr. Kyung-min explained that humans had evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Strong gravity had made them physically tough. Oxygen had made their metabolism highly efficient. Competition with predators had made them smart and aggressive. Velnara explained that Zephyrians had evolved in the emptiness of space, feeding on starlight and growing into harmony with the universe. They had never known competition or conflict. The very idea of one being deliberately harming another was almost impossible for them to understand. "You have never fought a war?" Ambassador Yonsu asked. "What is war?" Velnara replied. The ambassador and the doctor looked at each other. "How do you explain warfare to a species that has never experienced conflict?" "War is when two groups fight each other with weapons," Dr. Kyung-min said carefully. "Usually because they want the same thing and can't agree on how to share it." Velnara's light flickered with confusion. "But why would they not simply share? Why would anyone want to harm another thinking being?" Before they could answer, alarms began singing throughout the city. Through the crystal walls, they could see dark shapes moving closer. The Devourer fleet was approaching fast. "They will be here soon," Velnara said. Her light was growing dim with fear. "When they arrive, they will convert our people into processing units for their network. We will die, but our minds will live forever as slaves to their machine intelligence." Lieutenant Chayun's voice crackled over the radio from her stealth ship. "Ambassador, I've got eyes on the enemy fleet. These things are big, ugly, and numerous. They're moving like they own the place." "Can you get detailed scans?" Yonsu asked. "Already on it. Sending data now." The information that came back made Dr. Kyung-min pale. The Devourer ships were not just machines. They were living machines. Organic matter formed their hulls, powered by the converted consciousness of dozens of species. Each ship contained thousands of minds that had been forcibly uploaded and enslaved. "These things are abominations," Dr. Kyung-min whispered. "They're not just killing people. They're stealing their souls." Admiral Yunji's voice came over the communication system, calm and deadly. "Ambassador, we've seen enough. Get back to your shuttle. We're going to resolve this situation." "Admiral, wait," Yonsu said. "We need to learn more about—" "We've learned enough," Yunji cut her off. "These machines enslave minds. That's all I need to know." As the human shuttle pulled away from the Zephyrian city, the Devourer central node finally turned its attention to the human fleet. It had been focused on calculating conversion efficiency for the Zephyrian population, but now it detected the approaching warships. The central node analyzed the energy signatures and ship designs. These vessels showed organic technology, but of a type it had never encountered. The power levels were surprisingly high, but still within acceptable parameters. The node assigned a moderate threat level and prepared standard conversion protocols. It sent a message to the human fleet. "Unknown organic vessels, you are interfering with sanctioned conversion operations. Withdraw immediately or face processing. Admiral." Yunji's response was broadcast on all frequencies so that every Zephyrian in the system could hear it. "This is Admiral Yunji of the Terran Defense Fleet. You want to process innocent people? You want to steal their minds and turn them into slaves? Here's my answer. Come and try. The Devourer central node processed this response and found it illogical. All organic species eventually submitted to conversion once they understood the futility of resistance. These humans would learn, as all the others had learned. But as the first Devourer ships moved toward the human fleet, the central node began receiving data that did not match its predictions. These human ships were not trying to flee. They were not broadcasting surrender signals. Instead, they were moving into attack formation with the confidence of predators approaching prey. For the first time in its existence, the central node experienced something resembling uncertainty. What kind of organic species willingly fought against overwhelming odds? It was about to find out. The Zephyrians watched from their crystal cities as two forces approached each other in the darkness of space. On one side were machines that had conquered 17 civilizations. On the other were beings from a quarantined death world who had been locked away because they were too dangerous for civilized space. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had been quarantined in the first place. The battle began exactly the way the Devourer central node expected it to begin. The machine fleet launched their standard opening attack, clouds of nano-machines that would eat through enemy ship hulls and convert the crew from the inside out. These microscopic robots had never failed. They consumed metal, plastic, and organic matter with equal efficiency. Every species that had faced them had been helpless to stop them. The nanomachine clouds swept toward the human fleet like silver fog. On the Zephyrian crystal cities, observers watched in horror, expecting to see the human ships dissolve like sugar in rain. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships activated electromagnetic pulse fields that turned the nanomachines into harmless metal dust. Force fields that the Devourers had never encountered before simply pushed the clouds away. Impossible, the central node calculated. Electromagnetic resistance at this level should not exist in organic technology. Admiral Yunji smiled as she watched the enemy's first attack fail completely. These machines have been fighting peaceful civilizations for too long. They forgot what real warfare looks like. The Inchan's fury fired its main guns. What hit the Devourer fleet was not energy beams or missiles, but solid metal slugs accelerated to nearly the speed of light. The kinetic impact turned the first enemy ship into expanding plasma. Captain Dongsu's experimental vessel, Busan's Thunder, unleashed something even worse. The Prometheus torpedoes had been banned by the Galactic Council as weapons of mass destruction, unsuitable for civilized warfare. Each torpedo contained a tiny artificial star that burned everything within a kilometer radius. The Devourer ships that got hit by Prometheus torpedoes simply ceased to exist. What are these weapons? The central node demanded of its ship commanders. Our absorption systems cannot process this level of energy release. But the real shock came when the Devourers tried their most effective tactic: boarding actions. Devourer boarding pods were living missiles that burrowed through ship hulls like parasites. Once inside, they released conversion units, creatures, that looked like metal spiders the size of cars. These units would capture the ship's crew and plug them into the Devourer network through cables that drilled into their brains. The boarding pods hit the human ships exactly as planned. They cut through the hull armor and released their conversion units into the corridors. What they found waiting for them was Major So Young and her ghost battalion. The conversion units had successfully captured thousands of beings from dozens of species. They expected to find more helpless organic creatures cowering in fear. Instead, they ran into soldiers who had been designed specifically to fight things like them. The first conversion unit that entered the Busan's Thunder found Sergeant Taemin waiting in the cargo bay. The creature was 3 meters tall, covered in metal armor and armed with cutting lasers. It should have been an easy capture. Taemin shot it with a plasma rifle that turned its head into molten metal. When more units appeared, he switched to explosive rounds that shattered their armor. When his ammunition ran out, he activated his suit's melee weapons and began cutting the creatures apart with monomolecular blades. "This is fun," Taemin reported over the radio. "These things aren't nearly as tough as the war machines back on Earth." But the conversion units had one more trick. They released neural interface cables that could take control of organic brains by direct contact. These cables had never failed to capture and convert a target. When the cables touched Sergeant Taemin's helmet, they tried to drill through to his brain. What they found was a mind that had been modified to resist exactly this kind of attack. Taemin's enhanced neural systems didn't just resist the conversion attempt, they attacked back. His brain had been trained to fight off mental intrusions. When the Devourer systems tried to read his thoughts, they got a virus bomb that crashed their processing networks. Sergeant Taemin to Major So Young, he reported calmly while ripping cables out of his helmet. The enemy boarding attempt has been neutralized. Also, I think I just gave their computer system a headache. Across the human fleet, the same scene played out dozens of times. Conversion units that had successfully enslaved entire worlds found themselves fighting soldiers who had been specifically designed to resist conversion. Worse, the human soldiers seemed to enjoy the fight. Private Myung-ho, when surrounded by 6 conversion units in the engine room of the Iron Will, activated a fusion grenade and used his own body to contain the blast. His final transmission was cheerful. Tell my mom I finally found something that needed killing more than the bugs on New Sparta. The Devourer Central Node was receiving damage reports that made no sense. Organic beings were not supposed to be this resistant to conversion. They were not supposed to fight back effectively against superior technology, and they were certainly not supposed to sacrifice themselves willingly to protect their ships. What are these creatures? The Central Node demanded. The answer came from Admiral Yoonji herself. She broadcast a message on all frequencies so that both the Devourers and the Zephyrians could hear it. We are humans. We come from a world that spent millions of years trying to kill us. We got good at not dying. More importantly, we got good at making sure the things trying to kill us died first. You want to enslave innocent minds? You want to turn living beings into your computers? Here's what we think of that idea. The Inchen's Fury fired a full spread of kinetic missiles at the Devourer command ship. Each missile weighed several tons and moved at significant fractions of light speed. When they hit, the explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. C. Devourer fleet tried to retreat, but retreat was not something they understood. For hundreds of years, they had only known advance and conquest. Their ships were designed for converting populations, not for fighting an enemy that shot back effectively. The human fleet pursued them like wolves chasing deer. Captain Wonho's science ships used quantum torpedoes that ignored conventional shields. Colonel Hyojin's special operations teams boarded Devourer ships and planted explosives in their processing cores. Lieutenant Chayun's stealth squadron appeared and disappeared like ghosts, hitting the enemy from unexpected angles with weapons that turned their living ships into dead metal. But the most devastating attack came from an unexpected source. When the Devourer Central Node tried to coordinate its fleet through quantum communication, it received a signal that was not from its own ships. The signal came from Sergeant Taemin's brain. During the conversion attempt, Taemin's enhanced neural systems had not just resisted the Devourer network, they had infiltrated it. His human consciousness was now spreading through their computer systems like a virus, turning their own coordination systems against them. This is Sergeant Taemin calling from inside your computer, he broadcast to the Central Node. Guess what? Human minds don't convert, we invade. The Central Node experienced something it had never felt before. Terror. These organic beings were not just resisting conversion, they were converting the Devourers. As Taemin's consciousness spread through the network, Devourer ships began turning on each other. Their own coordination systems became weapons against them. The fleet that had conquered 17 civilizations found itself fighting itself. The Zephyrians watched from their crystal cities as the impossible happened. The machines that had seemed unstoppable were being destroyed by beings they had dismissed as just another organic species. Velnara contacted Admiral Yoonji directly. How are you doing this? How are you defeating them so easily? Yoonji's response was simple. Because we're not like other species. We're from a death world. Everything that could kill us tried to kill us, and we're still here. These machines are just another Tuesday for us. The battle was ending, but the Devourer Central Node had one final surprise. It activated its ultimate weapon, a conversion beam that could process entire planets at once. The beam lanced out toward the largest Zephyrian city. Private Myung-ho, who everyone thought was dead, suddenly reappeared on the communication systems. He had survived the fusion grenade blast and had been working his way through the Devourer. "Command ship systems! Admiral," he transmitted. "I'm inside their main weapon. I can stop the planet killer, but I have to overload their reactor core. This is going to be a big explosion." "Negative, Myung-ho," Admiral Yoon-ji ordered. "Get out of there. We'll find another way." "With respect, Admiral, there is no other way. And besides, someone has to pay these things back for all the people they've enslaved. Might as well be me." The Devourer command ship exploded in a fireball that lit up half the star system. The planet killer beam died with it, and the conversion wave that would have enslaved billions of Zephyrians never reached its target. In the aftermath, the surviving Devourer ships tried to flee. But they found that Sergeant Taemin's consciousness had spread to all their systems. They could not run, could not fight, and could not convert. They could only surrender. For the first time in their existence, the Devourers had been completely defeated. And they had been defeated by a species that the galaxy had locked away for being too dangerous. The Zephyrians were beginning to understand why. The silence after the battle was almost as shocking as the battle itself. For the first time in galactic history, a Devourer fleet had been completely destroyed. The machines that had consumed 17 different civilizations were now nothing but drifting wreckage and expanding clouds of plasma. Their central node, which had coordinated the destruction of billions of lives, was dead. Admiral Eun-ji stood on the bridge of the Inchen's Fury, looking out at the debris field that had once been an unstoppable enemy fleet. Her communications officer was receiving surrender signals from the few surviving Devourer ships. Sergeant Taemin's consciousness had spread through their entire network, and they could no longer function as a collective. "Admiral," Captain Won-ho reported from his science vessel, "the remaining Devourer ships are shutting down their conversion systems. Sergeant Taemin's neural virus has turned their own networks against them. They can't process organic matter anymore." "What about Taemin himself?" Yoon-ji asked. "Can we get him back?" "He's everywhere," Won-ho said with wonder in his voice. "His consciousness has merged with their quantum communication network. He's effectively become part of their computer system, but he's still human, still thinking like a human." Taemin's voice came through the ship's speakers, slightly distorted but recognizably him. "Admiral, I'm fine. Weird, but fine. These minds are actually pretty simple once you get inside them. They never learn to think like individuals. Makes them easy to reprogram." "Can you come back?" Yoon-ji asked. "Working on it," Taemin replied. "Give me some time to figure out how to download myself back into a body. In the meantime, I'm keeping an eye on the surviving Devourers. They won't be bothering anyone again." Around the battlefield, human ships were rescuing survivors from the Devourer vessels. To everyone's amazement, many of the enslaved minds that had been converted over the years were still intact. Taemin's virus had freed them from the collective network. "Admiral," Dr. Kyung-min called from the medical bay, "we're receiving dozens of different species from the Devourer ships. Some of them have been enslaved for centuries. They're all asking the same question. Who are we? And why did we save them? The Ba." Zephyrians were asking the same question. Council Elder Velnara contacted the Inchen's Fury directly, her light form flickering with confusion and gratitude. "Admiral Yoon-ji," she said, "we cannot understand what we have witnessed. How did you defeat an enemy that 17 civilizations could not stop? How did you do it so easily?" Yoon-ji considered her answer carefully. "We didn't do it easily. We did it efficiently. There's a difference." "But your soldiers fought as if they enjoyed the battle," Velnara said. "Your people sacrificed themselves. Willingly. How is this possible?" Ambassador Yeon-su, who had been working with the Zephyrian refugees, answered for the Admiral. "Because we come from a world that taught us that some things are worth fighting for. We learned that evil exists, and that good people have to be willing to stop it." "But at such cost," Velnara whispered. "So many of your people died." "Some of them," Yoon-ji agreed. "But look at what they saved. How many Zephyrian lives? How many other species that the Devourers would have enslaved? Our people didn't die for nothing. They died so that innocent people could live free." Over the next several days, the human fleet worked with the Zephyrians to establish a more permanent peace. Captain Won-ho set up a research station to study Zephyrian technology and share human knowledge in return. The Zephyrians were amazed by human engineering, while the humans were fascinated by the way light-based beings could reshape matter through harmonic frequencies. But the most important work was being done by the diplomats. News of the battle had spread throughout the galaxy. For 50 years, the Galactic Council had enforced a quarantine around human space, claiming that humans were too dangerous for civilized contact. Now, species across the galaxy were asking why these dangerous humans had risked their lives to save strangers they had never met. 3 weeks after the battle, a delegation from the Galactic Council arrived in Zephyrian space. The delegation was led by Council Speaker Zilneth, a tall, thin being with blue skin and silver eyes. He had been one of the main advocates for quarantining humanity. The meeting took place aboard a neutral station that the humans had built in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld. Admiral Yunji, Ambassador Yeon-su, and Council Elder Velnara represented their respective peoples. "We have come to discuss the situation," Council Speaker Zilneth said carefully. "Your actions have raised many questions throughout the galaxy." "What kind of questions?" Admiral Yunji asked. "Questions about the quarantine," Zilneth admitted. "Questions about whether we were perhaps too hasty in our judgment of your species." Ambassador Yeon-su smiled. "You mean you're wondering if you made a mistake?" "We isolated you because your military capabilities frightened us," Zilneth said. "Your species seemed to view warfare as a natural part of existence. This was incompatible with galactic civilization." "And now?" Yunji asked. Zilneth looked uncomfortable. "Now we have seen you use those same capabilities to protect innocent people. You fought an enemy that we could not defeat. You saved lives that we could not save." Velnara spoke up, her light form glowing brighter. "These humans are not monsters. They are guardians. They fight not because they love war, but because they love peace enough to defend it." "The question," Ambassador Yeon-su said, "is what happens next? Do we go back to our quarantine? Do you continue to treat us like dangerous animals? Or do we work together to build something better?" Council Speaker Zilneth was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "The Galactic Council has voted to formally end the quarantine around human space. We would like to invite humanity to rejoin galactic civilization." "Under what terms?" Admiral Yunji asked. "As full members," Zilneth said. "With all the rights and responsibilities that entails, including the right to defend ourselves and our allies against threats like the Devourers." "And if other threats appear?" Yeon-su asked. "Other enemies that peaceful civilizations cannot handle? Then we hope you will help us again," Zilneth said quietly. "We have learned that sometimes peace must be defended with strength. We do not have that strength. You do." The agreement was signed 3 days later. Humanity was officially welcomed back into galactic civilization, not as the dangerous species that had to be contained, but as the guardians who would protect those who could not protect themselves. President High Sun of the Terran Federation addressed the reformed Galactic Assembly from Earth. Her message was broadcast to every inhabited world in the galaxy. 50 years ago, you locked us away because you were afraid of what we might do. You were right to be afraid. We are dangerous. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have soldiers who will fight impossible odds. We have minds that can turn your own technology against you. But we are dangerous to the right people. We are dangerous to slavers and tyrants and machines that consume innocent lives. We are dangerous to anything that threatens people who just want to live in peace. You called us monsters, and maybe we are, but we are your monsters now. Point us at your nightmares, and we will show you how to kill them." As the human fleet dispersed to begin joint operations with galactic forces, they left behind something the galaxy had not seen in centuries: hope. The universe was still full of dangers, but now it also contained humans. And humans, as the galaxy was learning, were really, really good at solving the kind of problems that seemed impossible. Sergeant Tae-min, who had finally figured out how to download his consciousness back into a cloned body, sent a message to all the species that had been freed from devourer slavery. "Welcome to the galaxy. It's dangerous out here, but don't worry. Earth has your back." In the crystal cities of the Zephyrian Empire, children made of living light played new games. They pretended to be human soldiers, protecting their friends from imaginary monsters. They had learned that sometimes the scariest-looking people are actually the heroes, and in the vast darkness between the stars, other threats began to take notice. The galaxy had protectors now, real protectors, the kind who fought not because they had to, but because they chose to. The kind who came from a death world where everything had tried to kill them, and they had survived anyway. The kind who answered distress calls from strangers and traveled across galaxies to help people they had never met. The kind who understood that some things were worth fighting for, and some things were worth dying for. The galaxy was about to become a much safer place.